Welcome to RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network with your hostess, Jen Josie. Join like-minded real estate investors and accelerate your business towards greatness. You will hear step-by-step strategies for success, interviews with real estate rock stars, and we will dig deep into past projects where we bear it all, including the good, the bad, and some just plain ugly. So get excited. Here's the bestower of badassery herself, the real Jen Josie. Listener discretion is advised.
Hi, and welcome back. I'm Jen Josie, creator of RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network. Whoop, whoop. On today's episode, we have a guest that will be sharing their badassery. But before we begin, here's today's badassery bestowment, my little badass gift to you. Today's topic is pulling comps. Comps are the recent comparable sales in the last 6 months that are located within half a mile of your property. Comps are used when determining the value of your property. You want comps that have the same beds and baths, built around the same time, with the approximate same size lot and square footage. If the property was built in 1975, you cannot compare it to a new build. You also cannot use active or contingent properties as comps, only sold properties. When you have 3 or 4 good comps, you will use the sale price to determine the price per square foot for each. Then you take the average price per square foot and multiply that with your property's square footage to determine the potential value of your property. If you do not have access to the MLS, you can pull comps on Realtor.com, Redfin, or even Zillow. I actually really like the search tool on Zillow. I type in the address of the property I'm evaluating, and then I click over to the map feature. I change the search from for sale to sold properties, and once I zoom in enough, boom, there are my comps. I also like this map feature because the closer the sold property is to mine, the better the comp. So before you buy your next property, make sure you check the comps in the area so you are confident with your numbers. Now on to today's episode of the Real Estate Investor Growth Network podcast. We have with us Dani Beit-Or. Drawing upon 18 years of investing experience in U.S. real estate, Dani leverages his expertise to facilitate financial growth for investors at all levels, from novices to seasoned professionals. Since 2004, he has collaborated with hundreds of investors on nearly 5,000 transactions, enabling them to cultivate robust property portfolios across a variety of U.S. metropolitan markets. Dani's extensive experience during the 2008 market downturn catalyzed the refinement of his investment strategies and deepened his comprehension of the real estate landscape, knowledge which he imparts to others through his speaking engagements and educational programs. By tailoring each approach to investors' experience, age, goals, knowledge, and financial resources, Dani empowers both beginners and seasoned investors to optimize their real estate investments. It is my pleasure to have him on the show, so welcome, Dani.
Hello.
Welcome. How are you?
Very good. Thanks for having me. What a pleasure.
Yay. And you are in California. We were just chatting right before we hit record, and there's snow in your area. And I'm over here in Raleigh wearing shorts. Just throwing that out there. So welcome to the show, and tell us a little bit about you, Dani.
Well, thanks for having me. And true, I am in Southern California. I'm originally from Israel, grew up in Israel, and spent most of my years growing up there. Moved to the States. It's exactly 19 years ago.
Wow.
To the Bay Area, the San Francisco Bay Area, the Northern California part, and about almost 10 years ago, down to Southern California, where it is about 2 hours away, snowing, which is not unheard of, but not to the extent that we have right now. I've never seen it that white, that much in all the 10 years or so that I've been down here. So that's actually a nice sight.
Very nice.
Yeah.
So have you always been involved in real estate?
I started investing in U.S. real estate as a young person working for the Israeli high-tech company. Just when I graduated, just after I graduating from getting my degree, I was to the year 2002 where I bought my first rental property, completely sight unseen, in a suburb of a little town known as Phoenix, Arizona. I'm sure you've never heard about it. You know, no Google was a startup, no Zillow, no Compsyn Online, no all that good stuff that we have now, all those forums and Facebook groups and what groups, right? There were no investment clubs, there were no social circles or investors network, whatever, around me to run ideas, to consult. It was completely, that looks like a nice house. Let's buy it. The number seems okay. I don't even know how to fully analyze. All right, let's do it. I was really driven to do it. So that's what got me to overcome all those gaps. But that was my first purchase. And you know what? I really fell in love with the concept, with the idea. It was a good click, a good fit between needs and wants and skill and personality and risk, and everything clicked for me in real estate before I did that first deal. And obviously that was the execution of those things I wanted them to click. I never imagined that in 20 so years I would be speaking, being invited to speak and to share, which I'm gladly doing, and have all that extensive experience behind me. I'm like sometimes like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm living the dream that I envisioned for myself some 20 years ago, being in the real estate.
Wow. So what did you do with that first property? Was it a rental?
It was a rental. It's kind of funny. I bought it. It was purchased as a new construction from the builder. So you put a little down, like a deposit or something, and wait a few months, and it was ready. I remember that was all done remotely from Israel. And it took 45 days to get it rented. And I was freaking out.
I bet.
Why was I freaking out? Is because nobody took the time to tell this young guy. I didn't know to ask. In my mind, you buy it on a Monday, you rent it on Tuesday. That's just obviously, right? Obviously, that's how it's supposed to be. But nobody even bothered, like, listen, you close on a Monday, it may take a week, 2, 3, whatever, something. I was like, I was really nervous. And remember, everything, when you do everything remotely, which is my career to do everything remotely, investing-wise, you're always going to get nervous. But the farther you are from the property, the more amplified the situation is. So even a small situation becomes, even a leak in the faucet becomes a flood when your mind, right? So that was really nerve-wracking, but it got rented 45 days after closing for a family of 4, the parents and 4 kids. Maybe about 2 years after I moved to the States, from Israel to the States, to California, and probably throughout somewhere around 2004 or maybe 5, I went to visit my property for the first time, right? And I am going to the property, planned, scheduled, coordinated with the tenant, and I come into the property, my property, and I'm like, oh my God. Maybe this is even, maybe I've owned it by that time 3 years or something like that, 3.5 years. Like, oh my God. I know they have 4 kids, but when I come in, I see 2 dogs, hamster, and a bunny. I see it, right? And I'm freaking. First, I don't show it, but when I come out, I'm like, oh my God. And then, I fly back to California after the visit. Everything is fine with the house. The house looks actually pretty good, the inside and out. It doesn't show that my little zoo in Arizona is actually functioning well. By the time I get back to California, I'm like, listen, Dani, relax. You know why you need to relax? Your little zoo in Arizona is actually surprisingly paying on time. They're very stable. They probably in 5.5 years they stayed in that property. They were late twice. They were just late because people get late. Nothing more than that. And I'm like, listen, they only got paid to be twice. If for a zoo in Arizona, that's pretty amazing, right? So no issues. I remember they had about $1,000 security deposit, which I called the property manager. I said, the minute they move out, you hold that money because we're going to use every bit of it. And it actually cost about maybe $1,200, $1,300 to kind of turn around the property. $1,000 came out of the security deposit, and it was re-rented. So it's a nice house. It went up in value within 2 to 3 years. It more than doubled, and then because of leading to the crash of 2008, and then it went even more. So I refinanced that house between 03 when I purchased it, closed on it, to 2007 probably before the crash. I refinanced it twice. This house bought me 4 more houses within those years. Right. So ask about the start. It was very nerve-wracking with a vacancy because I was not mentally ready for it. But once I kind of processed everything, and it was really a good start. I mean, an amazing start, much more than I anticipated, by far, by so many ways.
And I like how you said, Dani, calm down. They pay on time. They're doing everything, because I'm the same way. When you talk about a little, drip in the plumbing or something, it's more like a flood, and that's what it feels like when you're so far away. The property, you had it refinanced, and then you did a cash out refi and you bought former properties?
Correct.
Wow, that is awesome. So you mentioned 2008, and I would love to kind of dive into that. How did you survive 2008? Because I heard a lot of people just gave up and went back to corporate America after that.
So surviving is an interesting phrase. Let's start with that. I think what happened in 2008, a couple of things happened, to me. I was already with multiple properties going into the crash, highly leveraged, negative cash flows everywhere, right? Because that was the strategy back then. So my position in terms of portfolio resilient or stability was not good at all. My income was real estate dependent, so even my income dropped. So I was like a double whammy. On one end, I have the negative cash flow, quite a bit properties, thousands of dollars every month, and income that is dropping. So one of the good things that I came to a realization with myself early on is there's a very good chance I'm not going to be able to survive it exactly like where I am, and I will need to let some properties go. And I did, foreclosure. So I've been through that as well, unpleasant, many years to fix it. But I'm glad, if there is a silver lining for me here, is because I'm glad I realized it very early, because I've seen people around me continuing to make those payments and fighting over those properties only to get to the same point that I got to maybe a year later. And by that time, all that year of money that they spent is kind of got, in a way, lost it. So I'm glad it was at least, and also the sooner you go into the foreclosure, the sooner you'll start repairing and getting out of that situation, right? So those 7 years everybody talking about, which is, where a lot of banks were willing to not look at the 7 years if everything after 2 or 4 years were fine. So those 7 years of punishment were not always exactly like that. But even if they were, the earlier you start, the earlier you'll finish with it. So that was also a good thing. One of the things that multiple things came out of the crash for me. So I'm always kind of joking. Am I a survivor of the crash, or am I a graduator of the crash? Because would I want to go through that again? No. Do I go back and I say, oh my God, what a horrible time? You know what? That crash boosted my knowledge, my experience, my abilities, my understanding of real estate. I found myself needing to dive into the fine details of, can you foreclose the same way on a refinance mortgage or a purchase mortgage in this state and that? Oh my God, things that I don't even want to know, but just had to go and dive into in order to come out of that situation, right? The best way. And I found a lot, learned a lot. From the crash, I also told myself, you need to reset everything in terms of the business-wise and start fresh better. And better meaning better systems, better processes, better decision-making process, better way to analyze properties, better approach or a little bit different approach about buying altogether. So there's a lot of fundamental elements that I kind of learned the hard way, which are still to this day. We are 15 years or so, 14 years after post-crash, they're still embedded into our investing activities. So a lot of the decision that we've been taking personally and with my clients, investors, we're all starting at the same, starting point of resilience, analysis, and so on, bringing us over the years and seeing that after 10 plus years of activity after the crash, they are paying off. They're showing the dividends of those smart decisions, more conservative decision, not overly conservative, but more conservative decision. A lot of those were started or came out of the crash. So the crash really helped me personally, and I'm always trying to share it with at least with my clients who will listen. This is why you would not want to do this, because it will lead to that, right? If they listen.
So right now, the current market is definitely changing. If you flipped a house 2 years ago and you didn't get top dollar for it, then you were doing something wrong, because you could list a piece of garbage and still get $50K over asking. But now the current market is definitely changing. What are some of the biggest challenges, and maybe there's some opportunities for real estate investors right now?
So I think first of all is the opportunities. So challenges, absolutely. If you're a seller right now, you're going to be very challenged, right? Most likely, right? By the way, not everywhere and not always. I can see we are still getting outbid, with multiple offers on houses just every week, right? So good houses that are presented well, priced correctly, still are getting multiple offers. Not 10 offers, but 3 or 4.
Let's talk about the priced correctly. What does that mean in your opinion?
I think that all the houses that we are looking at, looking to buy that fits our model, we operate in multiple US metros, right? So we have teams on the ground in multiple US metros following the same protocol of what type of properties we're looking for. And I'm looking at 2 houses. One is just came on the market. You can see it's a little bit below the price reflect let's say the lower end of the range, right? Not under market. It's not under, the sold on cheaply, but you can tell if there's a range of how much, what this house should be sold for. It's on the lower end, and it's positioned well. It photographs nicely. It's done. It's upgraded, whatever. So you can see already it's positioned correctly, and it's priced correctly as well. Not optimistically, realistically, and maybe even a little bit conservative of realism. Then you see a house just in the same neighborhood, and you can tell that even if it's positioned visually the same and looks similarly, they're asking a lot more money, and it's sitting.
Right.
Why is the house that is, let's say, perfect, right? I'm not talking about comparing to a house that is broken by any means. The house that's even staged or nicely done should sell very nicely. What is the difference? Most likely is just they're too greedy or unrealistic with the pricing. It could be an agent mistake leading their clients, but we all know that sometimes the clients think their house worth much more, and they're dictating, and then the agent say, "I told you so," right?
Right.
So that's the tricky part. But the first example, the house that it's priced correctly, it's not priced low, it's just priced correctly. We see that within the weekend we still have multiple bids. Right now, not all the markets are crashing. There's still a lot of uncertainty. There's still a lot of people that are sitting on the sideline not doing because of the high interest rate, but sellers are also holding back. So inventory is low. So supply and demand is still kind of the force here. We don't have a lot of inventory, and people are still buying even with 7% or 6% interest rates because they have to, right? So, but that creates an opportunity. That house So I don't want to be chasing the cheaper one that's just been on the market for a few days with multiple offers. I want to go, but on the other one that's just a few streets over, sitting for 35 days, that's my opportunity.
Oh.
So for me, that's something I would want to go after. It's not that I would not try to buy the other one for less. It's just I'm not that optimistic I will win it because of multiple offers. But the one who's sitting there, hey, I'm going to throw an offer, right? Maybe it's going to be a little bit aggressive because that's the time of the, that's the time, but that's an opportunity. So I like that. I'm not intimidated by it. On the contrary. So any era, any phases that we are going through, there's always opportunities. You just have to be, kind of to identify them. And I think that right now, what I like for us investors, I think the opportunity is even greater because as investors, when we look at a segment of the market we want to buy in, a city, a zip code, even the great multiple, maybe southwest, Raleigh. I don't, know exactly the area, but we are, as investor, I'm less picky about the house, right? I want it to fit a certain model, but if the front door is facing north, some homeowner would come and say, I'm not buying a north-facing, front door. As an investor, I don't care, right? If the backyard is a little bit smaller, a little bit bigger, the homeowner who's want to live there, he looks at this and saying, no, that's not a good fit for me. I don't really care about that. So that tells me that all those properties are relevant for me if they fit my criteria. That's easy. The homeowner is having a hard time with inventory because it's limited. I am not. But I don't really care if it's in Cary or if it's Chapel Hill, or for that matter, right? I want in the area. It makes sense. So that's easier for me as an investor. I'm less picky. I'm more numbers oriented, and I'm less picky about those little iffiness of homeowners that are having a hard time. I'm a homeowner, I was buying, and I'm having a hard time finding a house locally when I'm trying to buy for myself to upgrade.
So with all these opportunities that are out there, and I agree, I definitely feel like it's a great time to buy right now, but what type of real estate investments offer the best returns right now?
So here's what I've learned in the past 3-4 years that I think almost repeats itself as an opportunity. And I think you may even tasted it yourself. Fourplexes.
What was that? I missed it.
Fourplexes, quadplexes, and triplexes. And here's what the opportunity comes with those fourplexes. Fourplexes, it's a multi-unit with 4 doors, 4 tenants, or 4 different, doors or living, living spaces, right? So triplex, same things, just 3 doors, not 4. Why is there an opportunity? Well, many times what I've seen is that the fourplex many times comes from let's just call it an owner that's been exhausted with the property for whatever reason. And they're at the point they want to move on to a bigger property, move on with their life. Maybe they're repositioning their life finances and getting ready to more of a retirement phase. It's just very common to see those tired owner. A tired owner doesn't mean he's neglecting the property. He's probably less raising the rent as, he's not keeping up with the market, right? With the market rent. Why? Because he appreciates the peace and quiet, right? If they're paying, they're on time. All right. And remember, he bought it maybe 5 years ago, 10 years ago. So the ROI is not that big of a deal because he's referencing it to what he paid years back. Numbers are great. Those owners value the peace of mind, right? We come in and we're seeing those properties, and this is what we normally see. So it's kind of a little bit interesting. On one end, some of them are all the units have been renovated, few of the units have been renovated, or anything in between, right? So we know they might need some work done to them. The first opportunity here is to increase the rents, sometimes as much as $200 per door.
Right.
So if you buy a property and you have an opportunity to raise, even $150 per door times 4 doors, that's $600 every month. That's $7,200 a year. That's a pretty nice increase. The problem comes with it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to probably take a year at least. I call it to restabilize your quadplex, either to replace a tenant who's not willing to pay as much, or raise on the current tenants if they're willing to go up, not to 200, 150. They have leases. Maybe there's some repairs. Probably there will be some repairs that needs to be done. All of those things take time. There are people involved, tenants. There are leases in place. We can't just come in and say, you go out, and then turn everything around. Most owners do not want to be in a situation where they're vacating 4 out of 4 units. They want to do it when there's some transitional, right? So that year, right? Leases, all of that. If you have the tenacity, the patience to wait that year, because that can be very annoying until you get to that point, it will start paying off. So I always tell my clients, listen, a quad, a fourplex, be patient. The first year, very noisy. Why is it very noisy? A lot of back and forth with the tenants, re-stabilizing the property. It's not unstabilized, but we want to reposition it, maybe some work. You know what? Here's a couple of things that will happen as well. When you take ownership and we have done an inspection, there will still be things that will come up that did not come up in the inspection that needs to be addressed, that the previous owner neglected, or the tenant didn't want to report and now they're reporting it because they're new ownership or whatever. It will happen. Doesn't mean thousands of dollars. It just means it will make more noise or friction will come up. And you know what? Be ready that 1 out of the 4 tenants will most likely use the opportunity of an ownership change to give you some hard time. Why? Because he's frustrated, because he was promised, because he was told, because I don't know. So on paper, everything is fine, up to the purchase, moving forward. Guess what? Expect one tenant to give you some difficult times, and it may end up in eviction. It may just say, hey, we'll fix those things and we are okay. But I'm almost always seeing in the fourplexes, first year, embrace yourself for more. You don't have to do anything when you work with a property manager, but it's more info, more decisions, more. You want to repair the AC or replace the AC. You want to paint or just those are the things that will happen. But after just about the first year, then it's repositioned, then it's restabilized, and then it starts producing very nicely. And that is a great opportunity. But interestingly enough, there are not a lot of good fourplexes around the country. It's kind of weird. And I'm not saying it as just out of nowhere. I am looking through my criteria in multiple US metros for the triplex and fourplexes. And I like better schools, better areas. I like bigger units and not like a 1-1 for 500 square feet. I like something that it looks a little bit bigger and feels a little bit more, can accommodate a family. Super hard to find. Well, super hard to find those. It's not a popular product.
I have one for sale right now that you are welcome to buy from me, and it's listed for 1.25. So if you want to just go ahead and wire that, it's all yours. And I laugh about the quad because when we bought the quad, it was a woman who had owned it for, probably 40 years. And 40 years. It had window units. This is in a great part of downtown Raleigh too. And there's people in there that had started moving out, and there's one left. So I laugh when you talk about that one, but she ended up being fine. And we assisted her in moving elsewhere. We gave her some moving money and she was thrilled. So, sometimes you just got to do cash for keys and call it a day. But yes, I agree 1,000%. And this first year has been rough on us. So we're actually selling it. So we, like I said, 1.25, just go ahead and wire us a check. We got a great one for you. So,
okay, give me the
So Dani, you have such great stories. What advice would you offer to beginning real estate investors right now?
Okay. So maybe I want to provide two I think advices that are very fundamental and I think important after many years of observing how people work. So the first thing is, before you dive in and start looking at properties and sign up to mailing lists, which many of us tend to do, take a minute, right? You're listening to this podcast, pause pause the podcast, and then with your coffee, with your wine, 5 minutes. And what I want you to do for yourself, right? You don't have to do anything, but for yourself, write down how would a qualified property looks like? Not the best ideal situation, something that if you hit all those, criteria, that would be something you would consider buying. And when I mean criteria, it can be price, age, square footage, bedroom, bathroom, lot size, schools, cash flow wise, 2-car garage, 1-car garage, really, doesn't have to be complicated. You can be longer or more items or less items than what I've mentioned, but start with a frame and say, if a house is $1,200 or bigger or more, it's 3 bedrooms or 2 bathroom or more, built in 1970 or later, and so on. If a house that I'm looking at meets those, then it's something I can consider. If it doesn't, toss the one that doesn't away and focus on the one who does. I call it the little chit sheet. And then if anything exceeds that, you definitely want to chase that. Now, it's not something you would have to, you have to come with those criteria yourself because we're all different. One wants a 2-2, one wants a 4, whatever. This is a personal cheat sheet. It's not Danny's cheat sheet or someone else's. And when you look at properties and now you've gone through this process of criteria, it will be easier for you to say, okay, it's a match, it's not a match, or it's exceeding what I'm looking for. And if it's a match or exceeding, this is what you should focus your time and energy. And if it's not, toss it away, assuming you're being realistic. So that'll be number one, this 5 minutes just to help you with clarity, because getting this barrage of emails, how are you going to make a decision? Because the photos looks nice, right? It's crazy. The second thing that I found to be super, super important is knowing to ask good questions. It's kind of easy and difficult at the same time, right? When you start asking people questions and not getting just what they say as an answer, but dive in and kind of, it's like peeling the onion or peeling whatever, just go deeper. The more questions you will ask your realtor, your property manager, your tenant, your potential tenant, the more layer you will expose, and it will provide you more information, valuable. You're kind of diving to the core in order to make a decision or to solve a problem, right? For example, let me just, let me give you an example that I like to use. Let's say I have some sort of a repair needs to be done to my AC, right? My AC condenser in the house. Now, I may send 2 to 3 people over there. Each one will give you a different opinion how things can be done. And then in a dialogue or question with them, I can find out what is the best solution for me at this point of time. Maybe after hearing that the first option that I received, you have to replace the unit and it's going to be $4,000, right? But after talking to 2 others and maybe saying, wait, Mr. AC technician, I know you want to replace it. Is there anything else you think that we can do to fix it? Oh, I can do this, I can do that. I even had someone say, I'll replace this for you. It's going to cost you $300, but Danny, you may call me again in a month or 2 or 3, and if you do, don't be mad, right? Remember, right. And you know what? I did it for $300, and a year later, I had to call him, and he said, I told you to. I said, that's fine. I bought a year, and I also got home warranty, so that's okay too. Sometimes buying time is not such a bad thing, especially if you bring home warranty coverage into your property. So knowing not to take things at their face value just because someone said so, and asking questions and diving deeper will help you tremendously. I think knowing to ask questions, it's a skill that you develop. It's a must train. It's not like, oh, just go ask questions. But if you're here thinking about it, that it will help you come down to, dive deeper into those situations to help you make better decisions about a property, about a tenant, about everything. Super important. People just, okay, replace the AC. No, why?
Well, I think a question that a lot of the listeners have right now is, how do they find you, Dani? If they have questions, do you teach a course? What all do you have going on that can help our listeners?
So I have a web identity. My company, it's called Simply Do It. So anytime you go and you just say Simply Do It Dani or Simply Do It Real Estate, you'll probably land onto one of our pages, website, Facebook. So Simply Do It is my web identity. SimplyDoIt.net is our website. However it fits you, through Facebook, through email, getting in touch with us, that's fine, no problem. We do lectures, we do speaking engagement. I'm speaking up in the Bay Area next week. I have 2 lectures that I'm giving in Silicon Valley next week, that's March, that are open to the public. So people, if someone will listen by next week, I don't know when this one is going live, they are most welcome to.
This is going live March 13th, by the way.
Okay, so that'll be after the events, but the same event that I'm doing next week in the Bay Area, where so many people ask us, is it online? Guess what? We're going to put a webinar about it. So you can register to the database and stay informed on different events, no problem. We don't run a boot camp or sell courses. We are more working with people who come to us to say, hey, Dani, I want to buy a house. I live in a very expensive area, say the Bay Area or Seattle. Here, the numbers don't work. I want to go somewhere else. I know it's possible, but then tons of questions. Who can I trust? Where should I go? How do I analyze? Who's going to manage? What if there's going to be problem? And we've kind of solved all those issues, problems, challenges, operations. That's what we do day in, day out. So our program is mainly people who come to us and say, I want to buy a rental property. Can you help me do that? Probably. We'll see. I'll try. We're not doing everything. I've flipped about 100 houses in my career. Done with that. Not interested to pursue that. We don't do large multifamily, so we do up to 4. We don't normally go beyond that. We don't do crappy areas, older homes, that are really great cash flow. I don't think necessarily a really great cash flow. And I like boring real estate. For me, the most attractive things is boring. Boring means you live in your beautiful Seattle home, work for Amazon, Microsoft, whatever, enjoy your work, enjoy your family, and have rentals running in the background that will require some time. It's not 100% passive, but it is not something that you need to work with day in, day out. So that's kind of the vision we're chasing. Boring properties. The more boring the property is, the more excited I get about it.
Well, I am excited you have been on the show today sharing your expertise. So thank you very much. The second half of the podcast is what makes Dani a badass. And by the way, when you Google him, it's Dani is how you spell Dani. So I use the acronym BADASS, and the first letter is B for book. What's a book that's made a huge difference in your life?
So when I read fiction. I don't read professional books because that's my escape. I love it. And I ask myself, there's probably one of the most impactful books that I read is Blindness by Jose Saramago. I can always get that. Saramago, which tells a story about this society that has a virus, has nothing to do with Corona, and gets people blind. And the only person who's not blind, guess what? That's kind of why it's so fascinating, is one woman. She is the eyes for everybody else. And it's kind of micro society, how people treat each other when this craziness happens out of nowhere. And how one woman is kind of the rising star to lead them to out of that situation. It's so smart how it's been done. It has nothing to do with COVID, not even resemblance, not predicting, just crazy how the story goes.
Wow, beautiful. Interesting. I can't tell you the last time I read a fiction book. I mean, I do miss it, but I just love digging into business books, etc. But I like that. That's a very cool concept. All right. The first A in badass is for advice. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Set up negative role models and not just positive role models.
Oh. And why?
And what I mean by that, what that means is throughout life, we are learned and taught always who's your role model, who's your model. And it's always done in a positive kind of context. And I think when you have a negative role model, you're looking at someone and say, okay, so let me give you an example. I had someone that I worked with in the past that for me, he was a negative role model. In some situation, I would ask myself, what would he do? And I would say, okay, if he's going to do that, I'm going to do it. If he's going to make a right turn, I'm going to make a left turn, right? So I would use him as a reference because I didn't want to follow the footsteps that I thought he would have done. That it's all in my mind, but having that negative role model tells me, okay, maybe I should not do it this way, I should do it this way. By the way, my parents, which I love them dearly, right? They're good people and great work ethics. Financially, they are, my negative role models, right? They've done very little, personally, investment-wise. So I do reference them. I say, okay, my parents are like that. I'm going to do something a little bit different. So that's why the negative role model is just tells you, okay, I don't want to be that person. I don't like what this person's decision-making process looks like. It helps you reflect and do something else.
Interesting. I've never thought of it that way, but I do have a few people that would definitely fit that role for me. So I'm going to have to pay more attention. All right. The D in badass is for drive. What drives you to be successful?
No doubt. I know that's probably a very common answer in my family. My wife, in my 10, almost going on 11, when things are tough, I reflect on them, and I feel as if I'm putting gas in my tank when I just think about them and how they propel me. So 100%.
Very nice. All right. The second A in badass is aspiration. I'm a big goal setter. So what is a goal you are currently working on?
So, years it was all about me, not me and just Dani, just more the us, the family. In the past 2 to 3 years, I started maybe 3 years or so, came to the realization that wealth is truly, truly a generational thing. So I am stepping on my parents, wherever they set me. They didn't put me on any starting point financially, but still whatever they provided me when I was growing up, that's my stepping stone, for me. So I decided about 3 years ago, if it's, accumulating significant wealth usually takes more than just one generation, right? So I know that I was able to accumulate a lot, but it's not, it's okay, but it's something that I want my son to step on, and so he will be better positioned. So I'm still working on my own personal wealth, but in the past 3 years, I'm doing things in my financial environment that are already affecting him. They're not affecting him here now. But when he gets to be 18 and 20, if everything still goes on track as it is right now, his position, his springboard will be very powerful, very, very powerful. And that's setting up his financial. He knows what's going on, but he's too young to really comprehend. But this guy is already asks about real estate, goes on Zillow and does the work, provides opinion, goes with my wife for her jobs, works with me sometimes. I was interviewed to a radio show yesterday. He, at the same time, he went to my computer, went on Facebook and listened to the show, while I was interviewed. So he's already immersing himself in that environment of ethics and work, but that's not enough. My goal right now is to position him better when he gets to be, a young adult. So he can start. Wants him to have a really good start.
What a gift you are giving him. And I love that you aren't just handing it to him. You are teaching him how to immerse himself in the business. I love that. All right. The first S in badass is for systems. What systems do you have in place to help you achieve success?
Wow. I'm a system and processes kind of a person. Everything is a recipe. How I
What was your
onboard
first job when you moved to the US?
what I'm doing now.
Real
Yeah.
estate?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you said you moved to the Bay Area I thought it was a job. Oh.
Mhm. I am your modern day immigrant. Wife, husband, 4 suitcases, and my mountain bike. That's it. You know, I'll be honest. I didn't come with $20 in my pocket, but I came with several thousands of dollars. Not not a lot, but that was my start. Whatever I saved, I cleared my account, converted to dollars, put in my pocket, and came with it. So I had a little bit of money. I already had some the real estate that I've done, but I had no job. Nobody transferred me. Nobody told me, "Hey, we'll pay for you," or whatever. No, just tickets, coach. 4 suitcases. And I remember, it's kind of, we landed in San Francisco in January, a few days after, or straight to the hotel that we set up on a 5 days, 6 days down the line. It was Thursday. We rented a van, went to IKEA, bought a house, furniture for entire house. The same morning we bought a car, with a loan, and we were set within one day. We signed the lease on a rental for us, bought the car, and bought all the furniture for the house, all in one day. And by the end of that weekend, house was standing, car was ready. My wife said, we can't do anything else until the house looks like a house. So I was busy for that weekend. But that's it. So, but I am very systems and processes. So when I have a client, I have a very clear system how to onboard the client. When I am interviewing a new realtor, very clear system how to find an interview, onboard a new realtor, a new property management company. So it's like I'm almost too much immersed in recipes or procedures, but that just works for me. So everything that I do is very much systems and processes, and to make sure I follow the protocol. And if I need to fix it up, I fix it up, or I improve it nonstop.
So if you bought a whole house full of furniture from IKEA, would that take you 2-3 years to put together all that furniture?
It started Thursday night, Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon, everything was set up.
No. Did you have an army of people putting things together for you?
Just me with my, I'm good with my hands. And honestly, it wasn't a big house, but it was a full living room and a dining area and bookcases and everything. So it was a lot of working with this manual tools, but yeah, fine. I had no choice. Nobody gave me options here.
Well, I'm impressed. All right. To wrap this up, the final S in badass is success. What does success mean to Dani?
Over the years, or for me, success is actually comes from seeing the reaction I'm able to impact on others. So when someone calls me and say, thank you for helping here, or maybe it's kind of, good for the ego, but when someone call and say, you know what, I'm glad we purchased this property, and I don't think we could have done it without your help, or as successfully without your help, or my employee tells me, I see her prospering and doing better and empowering her, and it reflects back on me, but that's giving, or my son is doing something successfully. That for me is really that's my kick. That's what I'm enjoying. Empowering others. Yeah.
Well, you have definitely empowered me listening to you talk about quads, because I'm offloading that one. And nice. Yes, I look forward to working with you, by the way. Thank you for, you can send over your offer to purchase. Just kidding. But Dani, it has been such a pleasure having you. And one more time, how can the listeners find you?
Just go and Google Simply Do It. Maybe Simply Do It Real Estate, or Dani will Simply Do It, and you will land to one of our pages, I'm sure.
Well, thank you so much for being here. It's been a pleasure meeting you and having you on the show.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it. It's always a pleasure conversation.
Absolutely. And that is all. Thank you for listening, and we will catch you on the next episode. Now go out there and share your badassery. And don't forget, make it a great day. Take care. Bye-bye. Woo!
Thank you for listening to RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform so you never miss an episode. If you need more badassery, you can follow Jen Josie by visiting therealjenjosie.com or become a member of RAIN by registering on rainmastermind.com.